The Fuji XH2S comes with 6K video, 4K 120, but how on earth is it staying cool? Details coming up, but first I encourage you to subscribe and choose all notifications so you're kept informed on the latest camera gear, news, and rumors. Patrick's been at it again. Over at Fuji Rumors, Patrick is telling us about a new accessory that's going to keep the Fuji XH2S cool. Why do we need to keep it cool? Well, if you're going to be shooting a lot of that 6K video, whether it be 30 frames per second, 60 frames per second, whatever the frame rates that are going to be permitted, or you're going to be shooting 4K at 120 frames per second, that's going to generate a lot of heat minute after minute. So how on earth is this camera supposed to keep cool? Well, Fuji is selling an accessory that's going to keep it cool. And so what is this accessory? Well, Patrick says that basically it's an accessory that fits right onto the back where the LCD is. So you have to flip out the LCD and you put it in there, and I suspect it's some sort of a fan. And what that fan is going to do is it's going to pull heat away from the camera. And usually what happens is right behind the LCD for most cameras, that's where you have the sensor, that's where you have processors, and it's close enough to the shell that the heat's able to dissipate a whole lot quicker. And that's why whenever I'm recording like I am here in the studio, even though I'm using a Ninja 5, I always have that LCD out, even though I can't see it, because it allows that heat to dissipate, get away from the camera sooner. I know what you're thinking. This sounds like it's a bit of a gimmick. It doesn't really work. How could a fan being put on the outside of a camera where the LCD panel usually rests, how is that going to keep it cool? Does it work? There's already some fans on the market that help keep the Canon EOS R5 cool. You'll remember 2 years ago that when the camera was announced, the R5 was announced, I think it was on July the 9th, right around then, the first week of July, Peter McKinnon, one of the ambassadors, was talking about how he was shooting with it, and several times it actually did overheat and they had to let it cool down. Of course, back in those days, they were using an older firmware version, and firmware 1.1 does a much better way of calculating the ambient temperature to determine how much time you have to record. But still, the R5 in heat will overheat quite quickly if you're recording in 4K HQ, which is 8K over sample 4K, 4K 60, or even 4K 120. So Tilta's come out with a fan that snaps onto the back of the R5, again with the LCD out, and it helps pull away heat from the camera, keeping it cool so that it can record for a whole lot longer. And it drops the temperature of the camera by several degrees. So I really do believe that Patrick is onto something here. It looks like it's great to have this as an accessory, and it's great to have it from the vendor themselves. They're getting right out in front of this problem, so that way, as soon as this camera is announced and we get the first reviews, it's not going to be, what, we're getting 6K video, 4K 120, but we can't record for more than a few minutes without the camera shutting off. It's absolutely terrible. And that's exactly what we had happen with the Canon EOS R5. For weeks and months afterwards, there was all this talk. Canon had been hyping up the R5 that it could do 4K 120 frames per second, 4K 60, 8K over sample 4K. But if you had been shooting stills for any length of time and you switched over to video, you might not even have any time left to record video in those resolutions and frame rates. So I'm happy that Fuji's getting out in front of this. They're coming out with an accessory, and it'd be nice if Canon offered some sort of an accessory too. Although at the end of the day, I'd rather them have better thermals built into the camera. So it's really nice to know that we are getting this accessory that's going to help keep the camera cool. If you're going to be recording 6K 60, well, we don't know that it's going to do 6K 60. We do know that it's going to do 6K 24, 25, and 30. We're just hoping it'll do 6K 60. But if you're going to be recording in 6K at any frame, and if you're going to be recording 4K 120 for any length of time, maybe even 4K 60, well, the one thing you're going to want to do, the one thing that's really, really important to do is to keep it cool. There's many ways of doing that. You can get a Ninja 5, and the one nice thing that a Ninja 5 gives you is it doesn't just give you a way of dissipating that, well, not dissipating that heat, you're transferring the heat to another device. And all you're doing is you're just sending data right off the sensor out through the HDMI port into the Ninja 5, so that takes less pressure off the camera. But another big deal about these Ninja 5 external recorders is it's a larger monitor. I don't care what anybody says, even if it's a 3.2 inch or 3.3 inch, whatever size it is, it's not big enough. You need at least 5 to 7 inches to be able to properly see if something's exposed properly, to see if it's within focus. Yes, there's tools in the camera that can help you do that, but a much larger screen really, really helps. But they also have various exposure tools. So it's not just to keep the R5 cool, it's to provide other capabilities. And while I'm looking at you right now, all I have to do is just lift my eyes up a little bit and I can see myself in the viewfinder. I can see that it's recording. I can see exactly how well I'm framed, and I'm pretty close to being centered. And for much of this shoot, I'm not even looking at it, but at the corner of my well, not the corner of my peripheral vision, but to the top of it, I can tell that things are recording and that things are going well, that I'm not constantly moving my eyes to it. So they are very, very handy devices. But if you don't need waveforms, if you don't need false colors or vector scopes, you don't need any of those exposure tools, and you don't need a larger screen, well, you can save yourself probably about $1,000 and get this accessory, whatever it is, whatever price it is. My only concern is, how loud is the fan sound going to be? The last thing I like to do is add other things to my camera that's going to make noise, whether it be a fan or even a microphone, not a microphone, or even a lens that, well, just has a very loud focus motor or stabilization technology inside. Like the Canon EOS R5 with the 50mm f1.2. I love that lens. It's an incredible lens. I'm going to be shooting with it tomorrow, but it's loud. I can't mount a shotgun mic on this camera without it picking up that. So whenever I'm shooting with a 50mm f1.2, I basically have to mic up all the talent, which is a little bit frustrating and is a little bit more work in post. There's two battery grips that are going to be announced for the HX2 and the HX2S. We don't know if both of them are coming at the Fujifilm X Summit, but here's how they go. We've got one which is going to be a much more affordable version. I wouldn't be surprised if it's around the $200 to $300 price point. And what it does is allows you to put in more battery so that you can shoot for a whole lot longer. Canon does the same thing with the R5, and then there's a more expensive one. Again, it's probably around, you're probably looking around $700 to $1,100, and Canon has one of those as well. It has more capabilities and more functionality. And what some people were positing was that this more expensive grip, this battery grip, would have more capabilities such as a built-in cooling fan. Well, Patrick says, no, that is not what's happening here. There is a new accessory coming, and he did do a mock-up on his site. This mock-up, it's low resolution, so it probably doesn't look so good on your screen unless you're watching on an iPhone, but it is supposed to be a separate accessory. So pretty cool, right? We've got the Fujifilm XH2S, which is supposed to be announced at the Fujifilm X Summit on May the 31st, 2022. And about a week before that, we have Canon that's supposed to be announcing the Canon EOS R7, along with the R10 and two lenses. I believe it's the 18 to 150 for the R7 and the 18 to 55, or is it the 45? 18 to 55 or 45 for the R10, and the R7 being the successor to the 70 Mark II. So a lot of really exciting stuff coming up. I've been super busy this week with getting out lots of information. The website's been super busy. In fact, I've been getting so many comments from you guys, I just haven't been able to keep up. But that's what we can expect from times like this where things are going really, really crazy. But if you want to know the latest news and information, the latest news and rumors on any of these cameras, do yourself a favor, go ahead and subscribe, but make sure you choose all notifications. By choosing all notifications, you'll get notified as soon as I release a new video. That way you get to stay informed on the latest news and rumors. But that's it for now. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you again soon.